We've seen how subnet masks help in determining if a device is in the same network. But what happens when a device wants to talk to another device, not in its network? That's where default gateways come in. The default gateway is a device's first point of contact when it wants to communicate outside its own network. The default gateway is represented as an IP address and is generally associated with a router. A router is a device that connects two or more networks and can have multiple IP addresses for each network it connects to. In this example, the router connects two networks, 10.0.0.0 and 192.168.1.0. The subnet mask for both networks is 255.255.255.0. The router has an IP address for each network it connects to. For the 10.0.0.0 network, let's say the router's IP address is 10.0.0.1, and for the 192.168.1.0 network, it's 192.168.1.1. These are the default gateways for their respective networks. Now, if a device with the IP address 10.0.0.4 intends to communicate with a device in another network, say, with the IP address 192.168.1.3, it will first check if the IP is in its network. If it cannot find the IP address in its network, it will send the data to its default gateway, which is 10.0.0.1. Once the data reaches the router via the default gateway, the router knows that the destination IP address 192.168.1.3 is part of the 192.168.1.0 network. So, it forwards the data to that network, ensuring that the communication between the devices in different networks is successful. In our home network setup, the Wi-Fi router acts as a connection point between two networks, our home network and the network of the Internet Service Provider, ISP, that facilitates our connection to the Internet. Our Wi-Fi router has a designated default gateway, which is the IP address of the ISP's router. To elaborate, let's consider that our Wi-Fi router is connecting two networks, labeled 10.0.0.0 and 192.168.1.0. Both of these networks use a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. For the 10.0.0.0 network, the router's IP address is 10.0.0.1. For the 192.168.1.0 network, it's 192.168.1.1. The default gateway for our Wi-Fi router is 192.168.1.254, which is also one of the IP addresses of the ISP router. Similarly, the ISP's router has two IP addresses, as it connects two networks, the private network with the IP address 192.168.1.254 and the public network, with a public IP address 116.123.23.124. This public IP address gives the ISP's router and, by extension, our home network access to the Internet. When a device within our home network needs to communicate with an IP address on the Internet, say for instance 142.251.46.238, it first checks if this IP address is part of its own network. Given that the IP address is not a part of our home network, the device sends its data to its default gateway. In this situation, that's our Wi-Fi router with the address 10.0.0.1. The Wi-Fi router then inspects if the specified IP address falls within any of its connected networks. Upon determining that the IP address is not within its known networks, the Wi-Fi router forwards the data to its own default gateway, which is the IP address of the ISP's router, 192.168.1.254. This ISP router, having access to the broader Internet, can connect to the required IP address. On Windows, you can view your default gateway by opening the command prompt and entering the ipconfig command. On Linux, the default gateway can be found by entering the command IP route in the terminal. For Mac users, the command netstat-nr followed by pipe grep default in the terminal will provide information about your default gateway. That wraps up our discussion on default gateways. If this video was helpful, remember to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.